Okay, this is the October 4th regular Conservation Commission meeting for the town of Groton. My name is Bruce Lofgren with the Office of Planning and Development Services. The chair is Larry Dunn. This meeting is being conducted via Zoom, and if any attendees from the public would like to speak, they can do so during the public communications portion of the agenda. And you can do so by raising your virtual hand, and you will be admitted one at a time by the chairman. With that, Larry, you can take the roll and start the meeting.
All right, I'll start. I see Michelle in the,
Yeah.
all right, Larry Dunn, the chair, and I'll work from my screen. So Ann,
Ann Schmidt, member.
Kristen,
DeSante, member.
Bray,
Bray Rafferty, Vice Chair.
Karen,
Karen Scapino, member.
Michelle.
Michelle Fitzpatrick, Secretary.
All right, so we do have a quorum. And for the first one is approval of the minutes, and I just saw Tom. There he is. Tom, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Tom Olson, member.
That's okay. Close enough. All right, so the first order of business is the approval of minutes. So do you want to tee it up, or do you want me to tee it up, Bruce?
You can tee it up.
All right, share screen. Acrobat Pro. Okie dokie. So there she be. And let me go around the horn, and does anyone have any corrections or adds to the meeting of August 2nd?
This is
All
Tom
right.
Olson. I move that we accept the minutes as posted.
I second it.
All right, any discussion? And I should have said September 13th, not August 7th, but
I just have a question because I was not at the meeting, but there was an addendum. I'm not sure if it was part of the minutes or it was the plan added on as part of the minutes. The plan having to do with like the riverfront properties and stuff.
those were either in the agenda, and they are being posted. They are posted on the website. So I didn't see the need for attaching.
Okay, they're not in the minutes. Okay, then this is not the time. I just had a couple questions about those, so.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, let's call for a vote. Let's do a showing of hands. I see everyone except Kristen.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't there at the meeting.
Okay, Tom, is that hands up, or Tom Olsen? So I see, Tom, are you?
You must be muted.
No, he's muted, but he's not hearing me, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't know. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses, 1 abstaining, and 1 unresponsive.
I don't think he's connected. I mean, something's wrong because we're
Tom,
not hearing him
can
either.
can you hear me?
You could ask him to raise his hand maybe and vote, or,
Yeah, can you hear us, Tom?
well, I guess that's a
We
no. too.
cannot hear you. I don't know, something is wrong there. Well, we do have sufficient votes. So I guess that'd be a recuse until such time as Tom would change his vote. All right, so in order to make some progress, and can we send him a chat that tells him to go out and come back in again, Bruce?
I think we disabled, no, actually we don't. I think we disabled chat, but I can try.
Okay, well, my chat, just, it says to everyone, so. Okay, no, yeah, I saw that chat. All right.
Okay.
All right, so the next item is public communications. So I know we had several individuals, so let me stop the share. And would you bring in, who's out there?
Connor Jones.
So I guess none of the people I thought were going to be out there. All right, is there? Oh, there he is.
There's the
Fisher's Island.
person.
There we go. So we're now in the public communication session. Connor, would you like to ask something of the commission or present?
Yeah, I would thank you first of all for having us on this evening. I was going to share my screen if that is all right. I will do so right now. Okay, so yeah, I am going to briefly share for a couple minutes on the Fisher's Island Seagrass Management Coalition and their associated plan that they are working on currently. My name is Connor Jones. I'm the project coordinator.
Can I just interject that he's really, you're kind of breaking up and all choppy. Is there
Ooh.
a communication issue? Maybe a little closer to the mic, something.
Connor, I can share my screen for the presentation if that helps.
Well,
yeah,
the
that would be
screen
great.
we can see, it was the sound.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen, and I'm sharing my screen because I know that it might help Connor with his audio. Connor, can you introduce yourself again to see how the audio is now?
Yeah, my name is Connor Jones. I'm the project coordinator for the coalition. I work for the Henry L. Ferguson Museum out on Fisher's Island. How's that audio coming in for everyone now?
Yeah. It still is a little choppy and
Ooh.
kind of warbly.
Maybe closer to the mic, really like, maybe that would help.
Let's see, I'm also going to turn off my
Better.
video.
Better.
We'll see if that helps. See if that is any better. How is
Much
that
better.
working?
It seemed to help.
It sounds
Okay.
much better.
Perfect. Right, and I can continue and start off the presentation. I'm sorry for hopping on a little bit late. My internet was having issues, but thank you to the commission for allowing Connor and I to speak today on the Fisher's Island Seagrass Management Plan. As Connor introduced himself, he works at the museum on Fisher's Island, and I'm calling in from New Haven as I work at the Nature Conservancy. Both Connor and I work with the Fisher's Island Seagrass Management Coalition, as the coalition is drafting a plan to protect, manage, and recover seagrass areas around the island. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak to the commission and everyone attending on why this plan is being drafted, how this impacts not only folks on Fisher's Island, but even folks out in Groton and the Groton areas, and how everyone on this call can help support the recovery and management of seagrass areas. And with that, I'll dive into the presentation. But before I dive into the seagrass management plan, I want to take a moment to cover exactly what is seagrass. Seagrass are plants that flowers, fruits, and seeds, and they are very different from seaweed and kelp. They're often confused and misidentified as seaweed and kelp. And seagrass can form extensive meadows in coastal waters. There's about 72 species worldwide, and in Long Island Sound, the historic and common seagrass species is eelgrass. So in the slide, we see a photo of Long Island Sound, and these little green dots here on the eastern end represent the seagrass meadows currently identified in Long Island Sound. So similar to this photo, seagrass is disappearing worldwide, and they're just disappearing at a very alarming rate. Globally, 30% of all seagrasses are gone. They have disappeared between 1879 and 2011, and the rate of decline has increased between 1940 and 1990. The rate of decline has increased from 1% to 7% a year. So it's estimated that about 2 football fields of seagrass are lost at every hour. In Long Island Sound, the historic extent covered most of the sound, but today's extent is represented only in this eastern end. So only about 10% of the historic extent of Long Island Sound seagrass remains today. And Fisher's Island remains as a very important place for the remaining seagrass and their benefits. So exactly what is driving the decline of seagrass areas? First, nitrogen pollution. Nitrogen can run off from the sound from fertilizers and sewage, which leads to algae blooms. And these algae blooms suffocates the seagrass and seagrass meadows. Climate change. The water is heating up, and seagrass in Long Island Sound does not respond well to these warming temperatures. Also, physical disturbances and damages can be caused by anchoring, like in these photos. This is a photo of an anchor ripping apart the bottom of seagrass meadows. And damage can also be caused by coastal construction, dredging, and fishing gears. In this photo, we can see damage done by propeller scars. So exactly what is at stake, and why are we so concerned about eelgrass and losing this very, very valuable habitat? First of all, it's a very important wildlife habitat. Thousands of species rely on wildlife habitat for food, shelter, and as a nursery area. And also as a result, us as humans very much rely on the biodiversity that this really beautiful wildlife habitat shares with us. Climate change. Seagrass areas are very important and critical carbon sinks if we are to mitigate the climate crisis. They're responsible for approximately 15% of carbon storage in our oceans. In concerns to water quality, seagrass produce oxygen, which helps water quality and extract nitrogen from seawater. Coastal protection. The seagrass meadows can dampen wave energy and trap sediments to prevent erosions in coastal areas. In regards to fishing and shellfishing, it's estimated that seagrass meadows generates about $10,000 a year in commercial fisheries because so many important commercial species rely on seagrass as crucial wildlife habitats like lobster. And now diving into the main portion of this presentation, the Fisher's Island Seagrass Management Coalition is currently developing this Fisher's Island Seagrass Management Plan to manage, protect, and recover seagrass meadows around the island's waters. As mentioned before, Fisher's Island contains about 24% of the seagrass left in Long Island Sound and contains 98% of eelgrass left in New York waters in the Sound. So this plan really aims to protect, manage, and recover the seagrass meadows that are currently at really great condition, but are at risk from all the causes mentioned in the previous slide: climate change, water quality, nitrogen pollution. And this plan is being driven by community leadership and visioning with support from the town of Southold and the state of New York, and gaining support from towns and communities within the coastal Connecticut area as well. And I'll leave this at that. I'll hand the mic over to Connor so he can dive specifically into the Fisher's Island Seagrass Management Coalition and this plan.
Yeah, thank you, Diana. You can go ahead and go on to the next slide. So I think that's a good segue, talking about community-based leadership and sort of describing the Fisher's Island Seagrass Management Coalition. The coalition is really a group that's made up of stakeholders that represent 20 different groups that have some sort of stake in the coastal waters of the island. Below here, you can see the mission of that group of people of the coalition. And stakeholder groups represented include on-island businesses, the golf courses, landscapers, fishing interests, boating interests. The school is on the coalition as well. So all these groups working towards seagrass protection. You can go to the next slide, Diana. So the coalition formed in 2017, and since then, just here are some of the projects and progress that the coalition has been working on or sort of achieved in the past couple years. Last summer, they put out a survey, a stakeholder usage survey. You can see the results of that at this top right photo. Participants in the survey were asked to fill out a survey online where they could drop pins around the island indicating where they partake in certain activities, water-based activities. So each different icon represents a different activity. So you have swimming, different types of boating, fishing, the ferries, etc. And that really helped the coalition look at sort of a map of where activities were occurring in relation to where the seagrass is. The coalition has also put a lot of time into developing a comprehensive profile of seagrass management areas, or SMAs. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But both these first two bullets, we use the online mapping program called SeaSketch. That's what this screenshot is from, to do a lot of our sort of mapping work. Like Diana said before, the coalition is also drafting a physical written management document. This is what we're doing outreach for, to collect comments essentially. This past spring, we had a chance to meet with town and state officials. Fisher's Island is a part of the town of Southold, which is out on Long Island. So it's really important for both New York and Southold to kind of be aware of what the coalition is doing, their goals, because eventually the plan is going to have to go through and be approved by and supported by town and state. The coalition's also been able to raise money. They've applied for a number of grants and have been awarded a couple to help support some of their work. This summer, they've entered their third year of monitoring activities. This includes projects to study human uses of certain areas, water quality around the island, and water temperature in the eelgrass meadows. And more recently, this spring, these two eelgrass buoys were installed just off of East Beach, 8th Hole Beach area on sort of the north end of the island, just letting boaters know that they've entered a seagrass meadow and that they should be anchoring outside of the meadow when at all possible. And you can go to the next slide, Diana. Thank you. So talking more about the management plan, the physical plan, when it is all said and done, the goal is to have it made up of a couple of different components. One would be details on the seagrass management areas, including uses within the areas and detailed maps. It would also have a section detailing activities that occur in seagrass meadows that are known to occur around the island, and describing whether or not these activities are detrimental to the seagrasses. There would also be a section for management needs and proposed management actions for the associated SMAs. And then there would be recommendations on future research projects and monitoring projects as well. Next slide, please. So getting into a little bit more detail on SMAs, seagrass management areas are areas that the coalition has designated based on areas that currently contain seagrass. So these kind of green areas along the coast, and they've deemed these areas in need of protection. Each of the areas that they have proposed come with a set of recommended uses, unique uses. And these uses were sort of discussed and debated over a long period of time, where coalition members were trying to achieve balance between existing uses and seagrass conservation. The colored lines on the map below are an example of some of the areas the coalition has put together. Right now, they're working with a number of options that eventually have to be narrowed down to one option per seagrass area, essentially. Next, please. So when we're talking about the recommended uses for each SMA, the coalition worked under these 5 sort of broad categories, and we're looking at specific uses under these big headings. So you have aquaculture, you have bottom exploitation, which includes dock building, dredging, seawalls. You have fishing, both rec and commercial, watershed protection. As Diana mentioned before, this is kind of looking at fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides that go on lawns and in gardens that may run off, wash into the coastal environment. And then you have non-extractive rec uses. This is scuba, snorkeling, and boating as well. Next slide, please. So the coalition spent a lot of time developing these SMAs. They started back in August of 2020 and finished up this spring. So about 7 months where they were discussing and creating a wide variety of options. When they finished these sort of initial meetings, they had 45 different options, which is a huge number of different possibilities. And this, of course, had to be condensed down into a smaller portfolio of options. So the coalition kind of voted on their sort of preferred options, sort of the most popular options. And that ends up being 23 options, which, 28 options, which you can view on our website. And I'll go over where to find those in a minute. But that is kind of what it's been narrowed down to at this point. And again, the feedback that we're collecting over this sort of outreach period will help the coalition narrow that down so that there is just one design per area. So right now, different areas, different seagrass areas have multiple options. And again, it's sort of a process now of getting that narrowed down to the single best option that kind of brings together everyone's needs and seagrass conservation. In terms of the boundaries, through these months of discussions, there were a couple of strategies discussed, including only marking off the current eelgrass meadow extent. There was thoughts of doing a depth contour, but at the end, in terms of, I guess, consistency's sake, a distance from shore was kind of what was decided on for the most part. And again, you can look at the areas in detail on our website. Again, uses were determined based on these months of conversations where the stakeholders themselves were having the discussions based on their needs for business, for recreation, and the associated needs of the groups that they're representing. Okay, next slide, please. So again, that brings us to sort of the part that we're getting at, where we want to hear from people not only on Fisher's Island, but people on the coast of Connecticut, people from Groton that potentially would be using the waters around the island and would be affected by any sort of plan that is in place. So if you visit our website, fiseagrass.org, and navigate to the FISM plan page, from there you can access a survey that we have up right now, where we're collecting data, we're collecting comments, we're collecting feedback. Also on that page, you can view a number of resources that will help you sort of understand the plan, the process a little bit more in detail. That includes a PDF of all the complete information of the SMAs that I was mentioning before. It has maps, it has a complete list of recommended activities with them. There's also a document that has a summary of past meetings where you can view comments and discussions with the coalition members. So you can kind of understand where people were coming from in terms of where some of these recommendations are coming from. There's also a recording of a webinar we did earlier this summer. It's a little bit more detailed than this presentation. It's about 45 minutes. So more time to go into more depth. But really the bottom line is that because this management plan is really in the development stages still, the coalition is looking for as much feedback, as much information, as much input as possible, so that when they go to finalize and write the end plan, it's taking into account the feedback and opinions from as many people as applicable as we can. And you can go to the next slide, Diana. So this is a look at the survey. It's done in Google Forms. Again, the link is on the website. We are closing the survey on Halloween, so you have until the end of the month if you would like to fill this out, provide feedback, provide comments, and that sort of thing. And then last slide. Yeah, again, just from Diana and myself from the coalition, thank you for giving us the time this evening. Here's all our sort of contact info, the information for the website where you can access the survey. Yeah, and thank you again.
All right, thank you. I would like to limit this discussion for any questions and clarifications from the commission members to you. I've got a series of questions, but perhaps I'll start with a couple other members. So this isn't a discussion or debate on it, but just understanding the presentation that was done. So Bray, do you have any questions you'd like to pose?
Yes. Are they monitoring the size of the beds each year? Do they have folks out there that are actually GPSing the size of the beds to watch them either enlarge or shrink, if you will? Are the and what sorts of impacts, negative impacts around Fisher's Island are you seeing on the eelgrass that you're trying to steer people away from continuing to do that activity?
Yeah, good question. So I will say that in terms of monitoring the eelgrass at large, every 5 years, there is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They do aerial surveys. So 2017 was the last year for that. And then 2022, they're doing another one where things are sort of mapped at a macro level. In the past, we've had organizations come out and do ground truthing and mapping in water. In the past few years, though, there haven't been huge efforts to do surveys in the water just because lack of capacity and that sort of thing. To answer your second question, I would say the biggest thing around Fisher's Island is probably the boating impacts and having people either drop anchor in the meadows or run their prop through shallow water.
All right, thank you. Karen, do you have a question?
No, I did not. I'm sorry.
No problem. Anne?
Well, I guess I was kind of wondering who else you guys are presenting to. And I did see somewhere maybe on the website to try and get as many people, pass this information on to other people. So who else are you speaking with?
I think we are trying to speak with the Harbor Committee possibly later this week. And we're also, if you have any recommendations for people in the area, we would also be grateful for anything that you would recommend as well. I think Diana has a list of a couple other organizations around that we're going to try as well.
Yeah, aside from reaching out to different committees and commissions, I've personally been doing outreach out at marinas, boat docks, and launches to reach out to folks who do boat to Fisher's Island and encourage them and their neighbors that they know who do fish and boat around the island to likewise either be aware of this plan and also fill out the survey so that we can hear their voice and input, as well as reaching out to boat associations in the areas.
Thank you. Michelle? No. Tom?
I have gone through and filled out the survey. And from that, I kind of walked away a little bit questioning in my head, one of the major impacts here is the climate change portion, and I did not get that from the as far as what actions that you guys are looking at in these management plans is addressing the climate change aspects of this, since that to me seems to be the major component of why there's been such a drastic decrease in the eelgrass surveyed amounts over the years. I just wanted to know from either one of you if you have any ideas as far as on how you're approaching that through the management plan.
Well, I think in terms of sort of climate change and warming waters, I don't know if the coalition has sort of the capacity to address that in general. I think their goal is to try and preserve the amount of seagrass that is there. And really, like Diana mentioned before, seagrass meadows are a great carbon sink. In terms of getting the population that's up here at this sort of in Long Island Sound, getting it ready for, genetically ready for warming waters, that's something that I know people at Stony Brook are working on. They're trying to move seeds and populations of seagrass that is further south, that's more heat tolerant. They're looking into, transplanting and that sort of thing in Long Island Sound. That's something that we could consider doing in the future, but at this point, that's a little bit over, just a little bit over the breadth of this management plan, I would say.
Kristen?
I could put you in, I'll pass this information along to Groton Conservation Advocates, and they can probably spread out, disperse the survey. This might be something they'd be interested in. I can speak with maybe somebody, Connor or Diana can send me an email and I'll forward that information. My question was just, technically that's New York State and this is Connecticut. So will we actually be heard at the end of the day by a New York State that's making decisions for a New York State property?
Yes, I would say because there are a lot of people on Fisher's Island that commute from Connecticut or live part-time Connecticut, Fisher's Island, there is a lot of sort of this cross consideration between the two. The ferry goes from New London to Fisher's Island. So in terms of what we're doing here, we would consider Connecticut and Fisher's Island sort of responses or comments equally, essentially.
You would and I would, but does Albany, where Albany is where money comes from and stuff like that, that's what I'm wondering.
That is a good point. I think that we will definitely make an effort to, when we're presenting comments, to make that heard and say, look, that Fishers is closer to Connecticut than New York, and such a large population of people either are from Connecticut or coming over from Connecticut. So as much heard.
All right, thank you. I got a couple of quick ones myself. One is that obviously as the town of Groton, we're interested in that portion of the map which showed seagrass along the Connecticut side or the Groton side. Do you have a more detailed map so that we can view where the existing seagrass or eelgrass is against the GIS or kind of a parcel definition so that we can understand where it is in the town of Groton?
Yeah, I think so. The mapping service I mentioned, Sketch, we have some pretty detailed maps that I can get to you, Larry, or the entire committee, that we can get those emailed to you, or even do a meeting where we can go through Sketch or kind of get you set that if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, I would like to see it, and you could certainly send it to Bruce, who will be able to communicate it to the rest of the commission. My second quick question is, you mentioned that there's twice the carbon sequestration value. What metric are you talking about? Is that per acre? Is that per, so I'm trying to understand how to measure that against an acre of forest or tree size.
Yeah, so that is, I'm just pulling this up right now. So that's talking carbon burial per hectare per per year. So a hectare is about 200 acres. If we're talking, let's see, what we have on Fisher's Island is about 350 acres of seagrass. And so that amount of seagrass can effectively bury about 1,100 tons of carbon per year. So sort of that's the amount for that sort of size
Right.
that we're looking at.
Yeah, if you could send me that metric, right? Because then I can certainly compare the forest per hectare versus the seagrass per hectare, and that will at least give some sense of comparison, right? Because from the town council point of view, there's a very great interest in carbon sequestration, so that provides an angle. My last quick question was, the NER grants look like they're going to be approved in the next, probably within the next month. In terms of their contributions and measurements plan, are you going to connect with them, or how is that going to overlap?
Yeah, we are working soon as a coalition to try and our plan is to write some sort of letter of support for the NER, and in the hopes that there's some sort of collaboration in the future. I think Diana and I will both be attending the public hearing on Thursday, and yeah, we have last summer we did some of the coalition members and myself, we were in contact with some of the people kind of in charge of the NER, and so it's kind of an ongoing conversation.
All right. Brad, I appreciate your attending and providing the information. My suggestion is that we don't get into a discussion today with the commission on what our response is to it, but we can get the information from you, a copy of the presentation, and tee it up for a discussion at a future meeting. So that would be kind of my feedback at this point. We appreciate your time, and I learned a few things, and so I'd like to have the commission kind of look at the data a little more closely to see how it fits with our plans and support in those two areas, mainly carbon sequestration and the other benefits that might be there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
For having us.
All right, no problem. So Bruce, where'd Bruce go? Let's see.
Right here.
Oh, there he is. Okay, somehow I didn't spot you on my screen. All right, public communication. I know we had one other attendee, Lori, that's out there. So, and I know we did get a memo from her. So if you would open up and for just a quick introduction, Lori, on what your input is or what you'd like to share with the commission.
Lori, I'm going to allow you to talk if you'd like to speak.
Hi, everybody. We're Lori and Jim Duffy, and we own 26 acres out on Briar Hill Road, the Gunji Wamp section of Groton. Our home is currently on the market, and we have a few developers interested in it to develop it. It is zoned RU20. Our preference, however, would be for it to remain in some type of open space capacity. It does abut open space currently owned by the town of Groton. It's a beautiful wooded piece of property, and in the conceptual design, which I think Larry may have shared with you, the existing house that sits on the property will be carved out with approximately 2 acres, leaving about 24 acres to be able to do something with it. We are just in the preliminary stages of having conversations with representatives from GOSA and Larry Dunn with the Conservation Commission. So we're just here to introduce ourselves and answer any questions. This is very preliminary, but any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, Lori. oh, I'm sorry, Bray, you had a question?
Yes. Are you considering, are you looking to sell the property? Are you looking to put a conservation easement on the property? Are you looking to donate the property? Do you have an idea
yes,
at this
right.
point?
We're looking to sell the property.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other quick questions? Because I gotta kind of say where, all right, so Lori, as I mentioned before, we're an advisory group to the town. One of the things that's our responsibility is to advise the town on acquisition of properties and provide input, yay or nay on that. So again, is that, we're not going to obviously make any decisions or the view on that point. We can and will discuss it as part of our parcel discussions. And that's one of the things we have done in the past. I think late last year we did it with the whole inventory and identify parcels that could be as a potential an acquisition candidate. So we'll certainly look at it from that perspective, and that would have to be a feedback and a future feedback to you after we do have that discussion. So I think that's I appreciate you alerting us to that, and I know that you've also gave a heads up to GOSA, and we'll see how this develops. None of these things, as I mentioned, dealing with the town, none of these things happen fast. Right?
We
From our
understand.
perspective. Okay.
We understand. Thank you. Paige Bronk has actually been out here before to speak with realtors about the benefits of the opportunity zone, because our property is in that zone. So he's very familiar with the property. And I believe several years ago, the town also identified the property as a possible school site. But we don't know anything more about that.
All right. FYI, the GOSA is doing a tour of the property, and I'm sure if anyone here on the commission is interested, could attach ourselves to that. That's on the 26th at 9 a.m. Is that correct, Lori?
I believe so. It's the 26th. It was either 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the
Oh,
morning.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I got it 8 a.m. on my calendar now. Yeah. All right, well, I can double check that if anyone is interested in that. So GOSA, or maybe I can ask Tom to double check that, given he's closer to the home of GOSA.
Yeah, it's 8:30 was the time that's been set.
8:30. All right, very good. All right, thank you, and we may start our discussions later when we get the parcels if we do have the time. So appreciate that, Lori.
Thank you very much.
Back to the I don't believe there's any other public input, Bruce.
I don't see any other activities now.
All right. So getting into items of business, and the first one is open space parcel status. So what I would like to do is let me share this screen. There's screen share, and bring up the index. There she be. And let me get that up on this screen. Okay, can you see that? As you recall, so Tom, I took your latest one and I did do a little color coding, but it is let me bring this down. There we go. All right. So this is updates as of October 1st. So Tom, you want to do a quick run through on the updates and the changes?
I can. This really looks like it's item number 2, the open space stewardship workbook status, rather than the parcel status. But I don't have a problem with shifting between the two.
Okay.
Parcel status. We were going to talk about the dedicated open space in that list. But
all right. Yeah, I think I teed it up second on my
okay.
chart that yep.
Either way, but I'll go forward here just for the stewardship workbook. A couple items here is that the Birch Plain Creek I've started to draft that together. I've identified some additional issues relative to the sea level change data that we've been looking at from the Mystic River Coastal, some of the things there, and incorporating those into the bridge plane. I've also identified that the nature preserve is updated in there. But because that's not fully approved yet, I'm not ready to present it for approval tonight. So I'm just going to put, the committee will be working on that. We're reviewing things, that plan, it's in progress, but hopefully, for next month, we'll have something ready. The other thing I should point out there with that is that there's two abutting properties to that that went up for on a foreclosure auction on Saturday. They're right along the Pequannock Road between the entrance to the Kalinowski School and the EB parking lot. There's two parcels there that were privately held for about a total of 1.5 acres. No one bid on it, so the town will be receiving that property as new. And so the question is whether we want to incorporate that as open space and put it into the plan here. So we'll be kind of monitoring that also. As far as, so that's all I had on the Birch Plain Creek, subject to any other questions there.
Tom, I have one quick question.
Sure.
On those two properties that I thank you for your information that you put out to us about that they were up for auction. Those were considered when they were going to put this, when they were initially designing the new elementary school, the Kanaski School, that was going to be the entrance up through those two properties. And that was one thought at the time, because of all of that rock pile that's just to the south of them. And it's interesting that, and that the two owners, I believe, were holding out, hoping for some sort of commercial interest on that property, and therefore did not want to move it over toward the town so that they could have a cheaper road going up to the school. So it's interesting to see if you wait long enough that what happens over time. And it's interesting that they've now come up for auction. No one bid, so therefore the town is probably going to take them as on foreclosure, and might be possibilities, as you said, be protected rather than turn over commercial interest.
I mean, there's a lot of interlocking things to discuss here today. So rather than bouncing around, perhaps we should stop for a second and say, is there an interest from the commission to weigh in on maintaining those two parcels as open space or protected land, given where it is? I mean, it's right there on the highway. I know, Tom, you've been out there to look at it. I mean, any discussions or thoughts on that, on those parcels, on what our position should be?
Larry, this is Ann. I don't know if Tom, if you had a map available to show us where it is. I'm much more visual when it comes to this.
Yeah, we do have that. Hold on, let's see. I've got let me bring it up. I do have a picture of it. Let me stop share there. Let me share this here and bring up this here. Okay. Those are the two parcels. You can see the green above it. Right, that's the Klansky and the school property. So this, I guess this would have been the cheaper path of the road that was mentioned. So it's not really near, the preserve that we talked about, the other place. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of neutral on it in terms of the economic. Well, I did run an economic value analysis on it, and it came out in the lower quartile. I mean, so it wasn't, you know, high economic value. I am not aware of any historic values or other elements of the property that would be there in the criteria. So that's, I'm just going to throw it out for you guys. Kristen?
Is it a heavily treed property?
Yes, there is trees there.
You know, if the town already owns it and it's got a bunch of trees on it, it's got a lot of value for carbon sequestration. If they already own it, like, why wouldn't they just turn it into open space and leave it?
I mean, that's what I'm looking for is feedback. I mean,
Right.
other points of view.
That may get, I agree with Larry that I've sort of taken a neutral stance, especially since you've put up the map. The Kanaski Nature Trail that comes down through doesn't seem to abut these. Is that correct, Tom?
I agree that which you can see the EV parking lot there all the way to the left.
Okay.
And that's a fenced off area. There's some spaces there that the EV is allowing the general public to, and then you walk right out of there, and that's where you pick up the trail that goes up into the there. So it's adjacent to it because you're actually walking on the school property. Now the school is considered in our master plan of, you know, having dedicated, managed and facilities. This space is facility open space. And so you would be expanding, you know, adding it, you know, the King property, I mean, the school property, the original old King property is, you know, 123 acres. So you'd be adding an additional 1.5 acres to it. But it would help, it would just, you know, that whole peninsula, like along Pequannock Run there, road would be between the two sections. Where the wetlands is there, right next to, you know, that is wetlands right now, and the town owns that as part of the school property. So these would be two adjacent areas. It is completely forested, to Kristen's question, and it would just be kind of a natural additional boundary. Across the street from Pequannock Road is, you have to recognize, it's the Joel property, and that if you take a look at the sea level rise, the sea level rise in the saltwater marshes are going to be coming right up to the road, literally, and so that's going to be a boundary area in the future. And so from that aspect, you know, it's a consideration, but again, it's across the street from it. But in my viewpoint, if there was no commercial interest in taking this at a bargain of a rate for on the auction, having to go out and try to market this in the future is not going to really happen. And part of the reason, going back to what Bray was saying about, you know, they were playing hardball here, the reason that this went into foreclosure is that one of those two property owners died, and the other one had no interest, didn't continue the interest, and that's how come they basically walked away from it, moved to Massachusetts, and just left the property on its own. That's all in court filings for the foreclosure.
Is there ability to like put some parking here and avoid the EB one and have access, you know, cut the trail this way? Is that possible?
It's in theory, you could put, you know, if you wanted to put another cut in there and clear some of that area out, you could. I know that John Burt in the planning department, you know, worked to cut a good deal to have some parking spaces already on a paved lot for access when we after, you know, and EB has no problem with people parking there. That's why they kind of put those extra spaces outside of their fenced area, because you can see the fencing is where the little X, the red X is the fencing in the lot, and so these are outside the fence.
Yeah, so over here,
Yeah.
All right. Other questions?
So I don't see a need for additional parking per se. It's not that high of a use.
All right, Michelle?
Yeah, what's the property between those two and the green? Like, there's all that property.
That's all town, that's all school property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And the King property goes to the other side of the road that runs up toward the upper right. So where the
Oh,
pond
over
is,
here,
that's,
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
all, that's all town, that's all part of the school
No.
property also.
okay. So it's Michelle again, what's gonna, I mean, if we don't make any recommendation, what's gonna happen to this? What's the town gonna do? Like, what are the options even?
Well, I would yield to Bruce to say, what's your plan from the, evaluation of property when the town receives it? Do you guys have a procedure? I know you have a procedure when you, to get rid of a school, but what's the procedure when you receive a foreclosure?
It would definitely go through the town council, but my understanding of this property is that it's still in the let's try to see if we can auction it off phase. So historically, when, properties like this have fallen into foreclosure and then went to auction, there have been several instances where it's gone through auction, there have been no bids. Historically, what the town has done is they've held numerous auctions and stayed in this phase to try to auction it off for a period of time. And this just kind of began. And after that phase is done, that is when, the town starts considering, what they should do with the property. And that's usually a public process. There is a committee that was assembled. I'm not sure how often they meet, but there is a formalized process for, when the town actually does acquire new property, what they do with it. And then everything needs to go through the council, but I'm assuming it would kind of, go through all phases. Is there any commercial interest in it? Is there any use for the school, or for, conservation and open space? Those are kind of all the options on the table. But yeah, like I said, right now, I think it's still kind of actively, let's try to find someone who would like to, these parcels up and not have the town acquire it. That's what I think.
All right, so, I'm not hearing an intense desire that we're gonna want to break our pick on this, other than, yeah, it's got 1.5 acres of woods and it'd be nice. It's almost that if they can't find in the near future any interest in it, then if you're gonna protect it, then protect it. Versus, is it gonna be on again, off again, as we go forward? And the other fact, in terms of the encroachment in the marsh, the rising sea level in the marshland, makes it, of interest to, I don't know, if somebody could put a thing under the road to have the waters go in there, I don't know. But I don't see a great interest from the commission to go lobby to keep this. Is that a fair summation of what I hear from you guys? All right. All right.
Larry,
Yep.
just very, what it sounds like in our discussions here, that we're not really wholeheartedly want to protect the land, especially since the town isn't finished trying to auction it off, according to Bruce. So it's still very much in limbo. It hasn't reached a sort of a point where we could put a recommendation in, and it's right at the time when people are starting to listen and make those decisions, where if we put something in early, is it possible it just gets lost, and once the town starts making a decision, they've forgotten that we've put anything in.
All right. So net is no action from the commission at this time, I guess would be my net. All right. All right. Sorry for the digression there, but I thought we could just take care of that, Tom, as we were talking on it.
No, I appreciate it. And that way I'll just, I'll leave it out of the plan, and we'll just continue. We should be able to lock this thing up, and we'll have it ready for, pending the town council approval of the naming. We'll get the stewardship plan for next month then, going back to the index list.
All right. So that's the index list. Let me shrink that down. Now, the one that I guess I miscommunicated a little bit, we're talking about the space inventory 916 with protection update. Was that the one?
Yeah.
Okay, let me share that then. Share screen. Okay, so this one's gonna be tough to see.
Well, let me just, rather than trying to go through each one of these individually, what we've done here, just for people's edification, is that working with Noah from the GIS, we've taken the master list of all town properties. And then I've gone through and put each one into, it's either dedicated, managed, or facility, or nothing, which means that the town is either trying to sell it, like some of the schools, that type of stuff. Or it has other specific use that doesn't have any open space assigned, or any, it's like the town hall area. There's no extra space per se that makes it open, so that it's just town property. So what we're trying to do here is I'm utilizing, and then what Noah's doing is he's taking this data, inputting it into GIS, and so that we can now have a visual display of all this. But and in parallel with that, I'm taking, and what I did is on the protection, I've gone through and reviewed all the deeds and seen where if it calls out open space and stuff, and the items that are silent or there's no deed in there, or is a prior foreclosure that hasn't taken any action over the years, I've put those into a proposed section of the database here. That's in that column AC there, and there's around 50 parcels that I've put into the proposed section. And that, because we had our discussion at last month's meeting in regard to drafting up a motion or a referral to the town council, which would start with through the planning department and move up to the town manager, who would then review it, get the town, get attorneys involved. And then as far as for language that would be added into the land records and identify these particular 50 pins to say that this is based on prior use, that this is now considered dedicated open space for the town of Groton, for these individual parcels. And then that would be presented to the town council. They would approve it, and then that would go to the town clerk to be recorded and then tied to each one of the 50 pins in the town recording. So that's the process that I'm looking at here. And that's similar to what was the last time this was done, was back in the 2005 timeframe. I'm following for the Mortimer Wright and a couple of other parcels. There were 4 parcels that put in, but Mortimer Wright was the most, that I can right off the top of the head I think of. And that's the same process. And so I'm just using that past precedent as far as on how to move forward here. So that's what's represented here, rather than going through each one individually. It's, the list is, but it's basically everything that is where the deeds are silent. There's parcel there, there's land there, and so from a use perspective, it's going to be categorized as dedicated open space.
All right, let me bring up the proposed resolution here. Let me close that. Share back here. That would be resolution. All right, so from that list, oops. Okay, so this is, all right, there's the list taking from that document. And then this is now is that readable, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the proposal to submit to the town, based upon the work that you just saw Tom present. So I'd like you guys to read this, and then we'll have a discussion, and I guess we'll discuss having a motion to submit this to the town. Kristen?
Just a question, is there anywhere in this a statement that we want to say, you know, this is not a final list, that this list can and will be amended in the future, just to leave it open to add more material. I don't know, you know, if it's stated elsewhere in the document, but like, we don't want to say, oh yeah, this is it, we're done, we're good, we got it, you know?
You have to draw a line in the sand at regular intervals, okay, as far as on from a use perspective and everything. We've done a lot of work here to clean things up for over the last 2 years here as a commission. And I look at this as you know, it's the best I have at this time in space. If we need to plus or minus something like this, the 2 parcels we just talked about, do we want to add those to the list here per se? Or something like that, you know, would be the thought process. But at this point, you know, it's obviously going to take some more time. If those 2 parcels would come up and those 2 pins to be added here, we would have to go through this again and make a separate motion and action by the town council. It'd be the right way to be doing that, or get more sensitivity through the planning and through the staff process to say that when the town obtains this through the foreclosure process, that, you know, something be done, you know, as far as, that's what I was kind of interested in seeing the procedure that the town uses when it receives a foreclosed process, parcel. How does it makes a determination of what it's going to do with that parcel? And to me, if we had better procedures that would take into consideration open space, that's really how I would go forward here. We would not need to do these type of corrective actions in the future. Thank you.
Michelle?
This is Michelle. Could we maybe add that wording to this, saying, you know, we also recommend that if for future, you know, parcel acquisition, that this type of process be automatically considered? Can we? Is there a way we can say that, Tom?
There is a disposition process that came out, I think it was earlier this year, Bruce, that does say that they would engage the Conservation Commission into the disposition of a particular property. It doesn't address the legality of it, but I think one could infer that if we use that process and we're part of that process, then we could add this as a natural feedback as a result of that process. I think I said that correctly. Does that make sense, Bruce?
Yeah, it does. No, I remember that, that memo that went around. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but when the town does acquire a property like that, the Conservation Commission is one of, I don't know, maybe about 5 boards and commissions that is referred. So you would have the opportunity to provide comments to the, I don't know what they call it, the acquisition committee, for them to consider, you know, what their recommendation would be for the council moving forward with a newly acquired piece of property. So I know it's the Conservation Commission. I know the Parks and Recreation Commission is on it, and probably the Sustainability Task Force maybe, and there's a few others as well. So you would be referred. Yeah.
So perhaps we can add something to this that references that memo and say, you know, in the future, we would recommend that, you know, this type of protection would be, you know, added if that decision process results in this being an open space, something like that. I don't have the words right, but something along those lines, just to link the 2 together. Kristen?
Well, I do like that this says regarding certain town-owned properties, as long as the door is open to add properties in the future. You know, I think maybe like Tom says, we should just get this one, get it on the books, and as long as there's an open door to keep adding space later, then lock these down.
All right, other comments? Ray?
Okay, I agree with her statement that we lock this down. One question for Bruce is, the 2 properties that we looked at a little bit earlier, and let's say it goes to foreclosure and the town does acquire them, what is that? It seems like the time frame that the committee would take a look at what happens to the property or what direction we want to go in, seems to be, there isn't a certain time frame that they work in. It seems to be very open-ended.
And there may be more of a timeline than I'm aware of. I'm not on that committee. I haven't seen it function. You know, for example, those two properties you mentioned right now, I mean, the tax assessor, the tax department is working with the town manager, you know, on how to, you know, continue the process they're currently in of the auction. So I don't think it's come to the level of a committee yet. So, and I don't really know what that timeline is. It's kind of determined, but I mean, once the property is actually, you know, acquired by the town, I think that's when the committee I just described becomes enacted. I don't know how long after that or not, but it's somewhere between when the property is acquired to, you know, when the decision of how do we use this property is made.
It seems sometimes that the interest in it, that the post foreclosure town closes on it, it's now town property. It seems like in the past, the Conservation Commission has asked the town, what inventory do you have on foreclosure properties that you haven't made any decisions on? Is it a potential piece of property for open space? And it would take a long time to pull out any actual numbers or where the properties are and so forth, because there wasn't any running list that you could go to access it. And it was a very protracted part on their part, but it seemed as though if there's an interest in a piece of property, let's say to be developed, all of a sudden it would rise up to the top of the list and get attention. So it seems as though that sometimes on these foreclosed properties that some of them percolate up faster than others.
Yeah, well, I think that's true. Yeah. All right. Is there a motion to proceed with the intent of this resolution?
So moved.
Right. Kristen, you had your hand up. I heard it.
Yeah, I was gonna move that, but I was on mute, so.
Oh.
whatever.
All right, so Bray, well, no way, you were first over it. So Bray was the first, seconded by Kristen. Any further discussions? The motion would be to form this into a letter that would be sent to the town manager that, you know, the request him to take the action as identified in this memo or in this proposal. If there's no further discussion, I'll look for a show of hands. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that is unanimous, Bruce. So I will take the action to send this out pretty much as it is. I might add a little intro statement or something and send it to you as I've been doing with getting the letterhead and all that kind of stuff done. All right, moving right along. So let me get rid of that and go over to this. Now we've got a couple things here.
The only thing I have,
Stewardship workbooks, I think, is that's the next thing.
we have the Mystic River Coastal Open Space. At the last meeting of the commission, there was that a couple of the members suggested adding some additional, reviewing additional spaces, parcels that could be added to the plan, which I did do. And that plan was in the updated plan was put into the package that was sent out to everybody.
And this is it. So that's it here. So I think in what we've been doing in the past is not doing a detail review since it was out in the package.
Yeah, I would just point out to the additional, we did go from 3 parcels up to, I think it's 7 here. So I added 4 additional parcels. And in the big picture, if you go down to the next page, you'll see the actual locations. We had the, if you kind of keep going, yeah, those are the values and stuff. We've got a parcel that's north of where the River Road was, which is adjacent to the River Road Park, except on the water side. So we added that parcel. That's just north of the Mystic Oral School area. We had the River Road, which was in the original plan that was approved last month. So we can go on the next page. And then we added the Cedar Road and Noank Road was in the original. Those two parcels were the original. But then I went kind of down past Noank and around the Morgan Light, and you've got the a half-acre triplet park that's another small area to add on. So we did that. That's near Abbott's and Costello's, sort of what's on the opposite side of the peninsula there, just to kind of keep people located. And then we're going on, I've got another parcels continuing along. I'll slide down a little bit, Larry. Okay. Is the Brookview, which is an open space area at the end of your abutting Haley Farm is down in the Palmer Cove area there on the bottom, and then that is tidal all the way up into the Brookview open space. So we added that one because it was tidal, and it's also close to the Mystic River area. So that kind of incorporates everything kind of around Esker Point. I did not include Esker Point because that's all maintained, and just as well as Tanglewood spaces are coastal, but they're managed properties, and so they're outside the scope of what we have for our stewardship workbooks.
Tom, can I ask a quick question? Did you walk the Brookville property?
I have actually kayaked the Brookview.
Because there's a dam at the end before it hits.
Yeah, you can get over that if the water's right, which I did.
Really?
Yeah.
I walked it when we originally got it, and it was behind all these big homes.
Yeah.
And there was a talk with Deb Jones about, having a little bit of a trail from the Groton Long Point Road down to the road to Haley Farm. It never went anywhere, but I was thinking that, boy, it must have grown in there, but I didn't realize
it has grown it massively. You can barely get anything through it. The only way, that's like, I went in my kayak because that's the only thing that was open. The rest of it is total brambles grown over. You can't do anything in there.
Right.
But I was able to kayak up there, so it is achievable to get up most of the way. About half, I got up to where about the blue dot there is, the marker.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
And the rest
on
of
this,
this is
on this
all-
page, go back. No, that way. Page 8. There was just a phrasing in there in C. It said, where is it? It limits a butter interaction with the Amtrak rail system. I was like, I've never heard that phrase before. The isolated character of the properties that's noted in the below photos limits a butter interaction with the Amtrak rail system.
The reason I use that terminology was that we've got abutters that are, if you go back to the mapping area, you have a number of private parcels not in this Brookview. You have to go all the way back to the, because this was in the original, next page. Yeah, right there, this page right in here, where you, on the Cedar Road, Noank Road, you can see where the railroad tracks are there towards the right. But you have a number of homes in here and where the open space kind of areas between what's owned by the railroad parcels. They actually own a little bit of up in here, where the town owns property, we're kind of between the three of them, between the town-owned property, the privately held stuff, and the railroad tracks. You have to kind of have a mutual support here relative to what's going to happen during the actions that we're going to have to take for any kind of sea level rise and stuff, and working with that, because the railroad seems to only worry about and takes care of the tracks, and so any other property they do, they just ignore it and stuff. And that's what I was using the term of butters. That it's going to we're going to have to kind of work with them in the future.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't familiar with the word actually being used. I've heard of abutments, but I never heard of butters. So I just didn't know.
Butters are the owners of the parcels that touch.
Abut. That abut.
Okay. I just never heard that. Also, I was just wondering some of the digital quality on the maps when it's a live document, because I was trying to blow them up a little and look at them, and they degraded quite a bit when you blew them up. Is that something that'll be able to be remedied, or is that just
this particular version that you get is all shrunk down, and so it doesn't allow blow up, so that we can transmit it to everybody, because the file has gotten too large to email out to everybody. So I do a web version of this that brings lowers the quality, so the resolution, so you can at least see what's the surface. When the final version that's given to Bruce and Larry for uploading the stewardship plans is fully viewable, and you can blow it up and everything like that.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, let's see, any other?
These are all just added, same style charts that we've got, and added the same style of the comparison stuff that we had before. And then then as far as when we get down, keep going to the all the land coverages, just added the extra ones that we had here. No real comments. It's all very consistent. These are the natural diversity. The one up and it's a good quality, high quality environmental, for natural diversity on the River Road one, which was good. Going down to the next ones, the River Road itself really wasn't for some reason. And then for the little dock area, and then the Cedar Road are basically low areas other than what we had for Cedar Road before. And then the Triplet Park is very high on that whole Morgan Point peninsula is natural diversity. And likewise, most of the area where I had kayaked here, I talked a little bit about is all because it's right next to the cove area. So those are very good. No comments on these charts or any of the historical ones. There's really no historical value to these properties. And then there's really no change on the management recommendations here. I did not change these parcels will be treated just like all the original three, the 4 additional ones here. And then I added the revision history for October 21. Just adding additional parcels.
All right, any comments or questions on the I guess the Mystic River Coastal Plan?
Nicely done. It looks like a very good job of the documents. Very good. Good job.
Yes, thank you, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. It's nice to have them all together in one document.
So I'm looking for a motion to update what's out, because it's out there. The last version is out there on the website. Looking for a motion to approve this and to replace the version that's out there on the website as the official plan version.
So moved.
Kristen moves, Michelle seconds it.
Whoever.
All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. And so that's been approved. And now, since we're speaking of plans.
Wait, Larry, I have a related comment.
Oh,
I don't know if
yep.
I had put together that big table of all of the things to do. And if you want me to update it with this, I need Tom to give me the Word versions of the latest ones we approved.
I was gonna bring that up, Michelle.
Oh,
So
okay.
far is that this didn't change it yet. But once we get through the next one, I was gonna bring that table up.
Okay.
So, which was the Birch Plain Creek one. So let me stop share there. Go to the Birch Plain one. Okay, I have to go to share screen. Birch Plain. There it is. All right.
This one it has not, it's still in process. I still have to, the Kolonowski Conservation Areas hasn't been updated in here to Seagrass or whatever it is. I can never pronounce that. I'm sorry. But that's still, this is a work in progress. But I did add into here a bunch of coastal information in regard to the sea level change and the impacts of the saltwater marshes and stuff has been added.
Now we do have a version of this out there on the website, Tom.
Yeah, you have the original stewardship plan. This is to be an update to include the additional information I found reviewing all the coastal information that was lacking in here, because this was really the very first one that we approved. I've gotten smarter as far as starting with the industrial drive and then moving on to the Mystic River coastal, and then now this one will have to be updated for all the sea level impacts in here. I've added all that onto here on this version that you're showing right now has that information.
All right, so is the plan here to then, and I know these are living documents, guys, so to do version 2 of this and replace this website, even though we haven't gotten any formal name change approval, I know that's out in the future. Is this sufficiently, or let's say substantively updated that it would make sense to replace the website document?
Well,
You can't.
well, if you wanted to use this version, I did add in, there's additional actions down in sections 4 and 5 that talk about the sea level rise actions have been added in here.
Okay.
Just kind of blew by the
Right there. Now here's the actions.
Yeah, so all these things on the in regard to this for invasives and there's 3 additional actions that were added to this plan for the signage for discouraging dumping and contamination, for the phragmites control, and for the sea level rise impacts. Those were added to this plan.
Okay.
And then I think there's a couple of words that I might have changed a little bit in the yeah, I think this was no, there's no change into the recommendations.
Yeah.
They're still the same.
Okay. All right. So let me look for a motion to update what's out there with this version 2. Understand there'll be a version 3 coming. Any motion or discussion?
So
Michelle,
moved. I'll move that we do that.
second.
Well, I was gonna give someone else a chance to second, but I'll second.
Okay, Kristen, second. Discussion.
This is Anne. I guess I just would like to hear what Tom thinks. Would you?
It's just, the iterations are on the, I don't know where the town council is going to go with the name change. I just hate to be,
Yeah.
I can do incremental type of stuff. I can, either way. It's not that critical because there's no action that we're going to take if I wait a month.
Right.
With the town council action, hopefully it'll be coming up here in the month of October. Because I think all the recommendations have been submitted now, and it's going to be coming up onto their docket.
Okay.
My recommendation would be just to wait another month and rather.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too.
So I saw 3 head nods plus Tom's head nod. So without objections, we're going to defer this to next month. Is that Is that
Yeah,
what I
I'll
hear?
withdraw my motion, or we could table
Yeah,
it,
me
one of
too,
the
that's
two, it
fine.
doesn't matter.
All
I
right.
think it makes more sense to just wait.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so we will readdress this next month, which then
Yes.
gets us to, let me bring this up. Whoops. And Michelle, now we're getting to the
Right.
one I have here. Let's see, action plan. Come on. Oh, I have to hit share. All right, so this is the list of the action items
Right.
from all the plans that have put out there. So I heard Tom say there are no real new actions
Well, there,
for
Right.
the coastal one, right?
Right, but there's still a couple plans missing from this. I put this
Okay.
together before, like at least two plans have been passed since I did this. So it needs to be updated with the new plans.
Okay, and are you taking that action then from what I
Well,
heard?
that's what I said. If you want me to, then I need Tom to give me the Word versions of the plans that were new, the ones that we've approved in the past few months. The ones that aren't on here, because I could type it all in, but it doesn't make sense if I can get the Word version.
Exactly.
I thought I had given you access to all the Word versions rather than emailing, packages to you for the to the link.
Right. The ones that were available at that time, are the other ones there as well? Like, if
Yeah,
I
they're
go
all
back,
on that same link.
if I go back to the same place, the ones we just approved will be there also. They would have been added.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
line.
okay.
I keep everything in one location.
Oh, okay. I thought that was a thing just where you put them for me to get access to.
No, you should have access to it at all times.
Okay, then yes, I will take a look and see what's missing from here and update it for the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
But Larry, I
And
need this version because this is not the version I'm working with. So I need you to give me this version of the document.
Okay, I'm trying to remember. I think I might have either cleaned it up or I'm trying to remember what I did now to it, but I
Yeah,
will
but
send this.
yeah, you have stuff on here that I didn't do. So it makes more sense for me to add it to this version than my version.
All right, so it is on the way to you.
Okay.
Michelle Fitzpatrick, there we go. Latest. All right, it is on its way.
All right. So I'll add the new stuff to this one.
And I will
Right.
verify that you have full access to the share area where all those Word documents are.
All right,
And could you send me the link again? Because I'm
Yes,
sure I have
will.
it somewhere.
Yep, I will do that.
Thanks.
all right. So the good news, guys, is once we get through this, then we're gonna have to go back to that action list and start taking actions, right? But that's
Right.
okay. Yep, no, that's fine. We're getting
Yeah.
ourselves set up for it. So that's no problem. So I'm going through now. Let's see. Thinking we did that. All right, so there's a bunch of things. Let me just go back to the agenda to make sure I didn't miss something. Agenda, objective. All right, let's see, stewardship workbook. So I think we are through the stewardship workbook action items. I believe that's correct. There is, the next item on the list would be the short-term action items from section 7. So let me then share with that. This list is getting shorter. That's good news. Okay. So let's see. So you notice it's only like a couple of pages here. So we're at some point when we get these short term done, then we'll go to the midterms or the midterm action items. So if I zip through these fairly quickly, there might be an update in the October meeting. I think that one was for Tom on the Greenbelt and State Greenways
Yeah, I have a thing because I attended the September meeting of along with Bray and it was discussed at the Trails Task Force.
All right, anything to share with the commission?
The plan that I briefed at the last meeting where we shared and we saw the Tri-Town Trail, a connection through some of the GOSA properties, and then the eastern section going over to connecting to the New London Bridge was well received, but they would like a higher fidelity to the proposed greenways. Was the comment that was advocated by both Avalonia and the GOSA folks of the task force. But it was agreed that the task force would be is the right group to bring this forward and to work with Mark Berry for submission to the state. So I have an action item with them to get a higher fidelity proposal for each of the pathways, so that almost on a parcel to parcel basis. But I'm kind of holding off on that right now to be working to work with Noah, so that I'm using the town GIS database, and he's tied up right now doing some other stuff. And so I was going to do that later this month, and to have something and to focus in on being ready for their December meeting with a town map using the town trails and the stuff that Noah and their parcel mapping to be able to do that. So that's where we stand on where to go forward, because but that's still on the timeline, and that they would approve it hopefully at the December meeting with the higher fidelity, and then Mark can work, get the application and put that together and have Mark submit it as a part of the task force.
All right, that's good. We'll get to what's going on with Noah in a minute. It's good stuff, guys. You'll like it.
So as far as for an action update status, it'll be presented at the December Trails Task Force meeting.
Yep. Okay, got that. All right. Let's see. Develop program. Oh, this one's still not quite third quarter. So
that MS4 that field trip they were going to have to visit the storm sewer systems, unfortunately is scheduled on a day when I'm not able to attend. Did you get the memo on that? And I think it's the 26th or something.
The 26 or 27, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to visit my older daughter who I haven't seen in 2 years. So I
Wow.
won't be able to attend that.
Yeah, I have
is
to
there?
check if I'm available.
Ann, did you say you were available?
Yes, I'm pretty sure I am.
So that's going to be, this is going to be updated to October, I don't know, week of the 26th, I'll put down.
26th or something, yeah.
26th. All right, good. So we'll get an update next session. Okay. Let's see. Down to here. Oh, NERD process. There is an item, is that's coming up this week with the open meeting. I think you heard that from the Seagrass presentation. And I guess one of my questions is, and maybe to Bruce, is the town providing formal input? Is there a need for the Conservation Commission to support the town, on input supporting the NERD proposal?
I'm not sure if the council is taking this up or not providing input. I think it would help if the Conservation Commission provided some input. I think what they were saying was that, the more input we get, the better. But I mean, if the commission doesn't think it's appropriate to provide any input, I would say, you independently could at least take the survey and provide some input that way. But I mean, it's up to you. I'm not aware of any other commissions or entity in the town that will be providing input though.
Well, this one's on a short fuse, so I think it's Thursday.
Yeah.
Is that?
This week, Thursday, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I guess my question is, as a commission, if we want to provide public input as the commission, I believe there is a place to send it to. It would be a fairly short document representing the commission. And I, I'll kind of reach out to Bray, given the Avery Point is actually sponsoring this, so you got a self-interest here. But is it appropriate? I'll first ask the commission: is it appropriate that we, as a body, go in and support it? So, comments from you guys?
Yes, sure. It's appropriate.
Yes, I agree, especially if the town's not going to do it.
Yeah, I just point out that we did make a commitment in the open space plan, and that's been approved by the town council. So I think we're kind of covered, saying that indirectly the town council supports it.
Since they supported the plan, fair enough. All right, so without objection, I would. Oh, I'm sorry, Ann.
No, Larry, I thought I read that written comments were being taken till October 18th.
That's,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, the public hearing is.
But you want to do it
Thursday.
through the public hearing or both?
Well, I think we can give, if we get it to them, I don't think the public hearing means we have to read it, right? Isn't it? We can just input it?
I think so.
I
I think it
so.
said you could just
Usually.
attach.
Yeah.
I
So,
think, yeah.
all right, so I guess, without objection, I said the commission then authorizes communications as part of the public hearing and the input thereafter. Bray, would you provide a very brief, matter of fact, do it directly. Don't wait for anyone else. So I would say this is right from the vice chair's office that says, we, the commission.
Unfortunately,
support
I'm
it.
not going to have time between now and Thursday to put something together. So I apologize for backing out.
Well, if written input is available to the 18th, that is almost 2 weeks away. Is that sufficient time for you to?
Yes.
All right, super. All right, so we'll go with written input to the NER hearing. I guess hearing, is that the right public hearing? If they're.
Yeah, it's listed as a public hearing. It was posted in the newspaper, and there's
Right.
actually two sessions. There's an afternoon verbal session by a Zoom, and then an evening one.
No, I think it's morning.
Good, that's good. All right. So this one, so that one is a grade 2, oops. Geez. Come on. Oh, I know, I keep hitting the wrong thing. All right, and where's my mouse here? There's not a lot, let's see. Oh, the trails booklet. Let's see, that's Bray again. Bray, any updates on that one?
No, I've written a note out to the town manager on an aspect of it, and haven't heard back. So I've got to reinitiate that, get in touch with him.
All right. Let's see, I think, oh, the Woodcrest Open Space Plan. We did have, oh, that's the one where collaboratively between Parks and Rec and GOSA, and we did have let's see, I think there's I thought I had the name in here. No, I guess not. But I do have the person's name on that. So now we're getting into execution of the actions. I think it might be better to move this over to that list that Michelle's got, because we're now executing, rather than having them in multiple places. So I would say let's move this to, move to stewardship action log. On that particular parcel. Let's see. Okay, volunteer open space. So this is so Michelle, you were kind of taking the lead on how to do that. We did go to the RTM last month. We did provide. We at least had one RTM member from each of the districts respond. We only had 10% of the RTM members respond, so that's the good news, bad news. So any updates or progress on that score?
Well, we proved you sending that letter to that group that was looking for help, and we decided that parcel would be our first, our test case of how this works. Now,
Right.
Have you sent that? Have we heard anything back yet?
That was sent. Yes. No, that was sent out. I was going to actually. Oh, I think it's at the back of the agenda. Bruce,
Right.
Put them in there. So that letter has been sent, and it's in there. I have not heard anything back.
Okay.
From them. And I guess as I'm trying to decide, is that something, again, we're back to that action log that we just talked about, right? With all the parcels.
Well, that's what.
I have a back whack meeting October 6th, so I can report back on that once I go to that meeting day after tomorrow, Michelle.
Okay, so yeah, so maybe it's Michelle again. Maybe we can, as part of the next meeting, both look at the updated list and also start talking about the specifics of that parcel. Like whatever feedback you get from them, kind of piece that together with, okay, then here's what they want to do. We decide what we want to do going forward with it, how we want to approach it.
Okay.
Because
there's no way we're doing this stuff on our own. We can't do anything unless we've got somebody else working with us.
I agree. I mean, so that's where we're going with that. Okay. And that kind of ties into the next one. On the student support. And I know on the OPIM program, I did input that. They were supposed to have more meetings, get back to me. They haven't yet. Let me reach out. Let me reach out and get an updated status from my friends at UConn on the proposal dealing with forest carbon sequestration tracking. So on this list is actually, we've kind of knocked off a lot. I mean, I am not showing the ones we've done.
Larry?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Bray. Yep.
Could you go to the last again? What you just had up there?
Yep.
So this just jogged my memory. I just forgotten it. Michelle investigating into Connecticut College potential anyway, utilizing student support to improve trail map accuracy. Is there any interest on the commission right now to Pequot Woods Board of Trustees? One of the board members is a botanist at Connecticut College. And his students have been going through parts of Pequot Woods, identifying the variety of different vegetation, taking photographs, doing research on what type of plant it is, maybe something unique about it, and putting it together as a short little like a PowerPoint presentation, if you will. And he was just, I just saw an email and I haven't had a chance to really to go through much of it, asking if the Conservation Commission, I'm asking the Conservation Commission if we'd like to have on our website a link to that particular presentation about the types of plants, not just trees, but bushes and so forth, available to look at. It's a way to identify and say a little bit about what type of vegetation is in on some of our properties here in Groton.
I think that sounds cool.
Yeah,
I
but
agree.
we haven't seen the presentation though, Bray. Is that something you could, or forward us the link so we can all look at it?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, why don't we do that? Because what we're doing every month is I'm looking for Conservation Commission agreement with the web updates that we're making so that we're kind of in sync. So I would say get that out to us. We'll then look at it and vote to then promote it to the website at our next meeting, similar to what we did with the OPIM report. That's exactly the process we followed. So that's what I would like to do at the, oh my God, the November meeting? Where did this year go? All right. All right, so Bruce, that's an agenda item for the November meeting with the intent to promote that and provide a link, not just a link. Well, I guess it'd either be a link or the document itself, depending on how it comes across on our website. Okay, so that is, let me go check and see where we're at. So let me stop share there. Oh, speaking of web, let me share with you two things. One is the current plan updates to the website. And then next would be the work being done with IT, with NOAA and the IT department. So let me share this, go to that. Wrong one. Did I do that? No, that's the right one. Okay. So this is kind of labeled October web updates. So on this one is, we did approve the stewardship plan that we just updated. So that would go out there. Tom would give me the document with the draft removed, obviously, for me to do that. Then there was another item, which I guess a little bit out of sync, is that we did run across in the context of looking at the coastal study, came across the Salt Marsh Advancement Zone Assessment of Groton from 2015. And as we went through, there was some interesting information. And then Tom mapped that to the stewardship plans we had. So this is more informational. It's not creating anything other than providing additional data in regards to the plans we have as a result of this study from 2015, which shows the impact and what happens to the coastline. So we thought that was pretty good. So the intent was to provide this link to that as information on the documents and resources page for the Salt Marsh Advancement Zone Assessment. I went back and I did find a few years ago, I think I had found it, and then I lost track of it. So we kind of rediscovered it. And that's the kind of things I want to make sure we don't lose, because it was good data. So those were the things, plus the normal updates of Section 7. Not yet ready to provide what we're calling the Michelle matrix yet. So we'll hold off on that. But those were the updates that I was planning to do. So any comments or questions on those proposed changes? All right, so without objection, I will proceed in submitting this into IT and getting those changes updated. So let me stop that. Now, this is the good stuff for today. Let me bring up a live version and share this. Share this. All right, so, all right, let me get that out of the way. All right, let me get this out of the way for a second. All right, so we talked about this last month, and Noah's been working diligently on it. So it took that big spreadsheet, right, that from Tom with all the data on it, and he inputted this. And what this shows is all the open space in the town. This is now based upon our inventory. And if you go down here, you'll notice, now in fact, if I add those to it, boom, boom. So these are all the categories that are listed in that spreadsheet, if you recall all these different categories. So what this interactive mapping now does is you can go in and select or deselect, any of these overlays and then see what's left. So you can get down and say, oh, what's private, and just have a map of the private stuff. So that's kind of really neat. And then if you pick on a parcel, for example, you'll get over here is the parcel information.
Oh, cool.
Right, so you notice the parcel number change. I guess I went to one. Let me go to some. Oh man, this is the thing I hate about GIS. You click something and if your mouse is screwed up. So Haley Farm South Park, for example, right here. So this is really neat for us to look at it. The point, I'm not finished yet. Wait, there's more. There's more. And there's more.
This is cool.
Two Ginshu knives. So then, and we're kind of working through this. There's additional ones beyond this that he's working on. But this is the table. Oh, yeah. All right. So if remember, recall I said that you sent in, Tom sent in that big spreadsheet. This is that spreadsheet. So if you go across, you notice all the information in terms of is there a stewardship in there? Is it active or passive? Remember the protection listing, is it protected or not protected? Economic values in here. So there's a lot of information here that the problem we had is that we were exchanging tables. There's a lot of tables out there. I mean, I looked on my hard drive and I probably have 20 of these things. So what we decided is that the town agreed to the ID department, they're going to be the repository and the control and the owner of the data. So we as a commission then would make modifications to this stuff. I'm pointing and you can't see what I'm doing. And we would forward that the same way we do the web page updates. We would forward that to Noah rather than the IT department, a little different part of the IT department, to do those updates so that we now have a consistent, and let's call it surviving us, right? If we come and go, there's still now the town has ownership of the data, which is good stuff. So one of the things that we've asked to do is start to do some statistics on this. So depending on, he made some changes. So this is live. So if he made a change, then it shows up. So one of the things is start to provide data on how much land is being protected versus the total land area in the town of Groton. So we did spend some time in a meeting. I think I did that meeting. I don't think Tom was with me, but I spent time, I'm sorry, Tom did it online and I did it in person, about trying to figure out what number can we agree to is the denominator for the land space of Groton, right? Which was a harder question than you might think because there's a number of different numbers out there. So to get a fixed definition, so then we talk about percentages, then we could take these and get different acres of each category and, what percentage of that is of the town area. So as we go through this, one of the things that we'll be looking for, and probably on the next iteration from NOAA, what we're going to do is send each of you a link. This is now for the commission use, not public use yet. We'll send a commit, and then you can go through that, and then we'll have a discussion on what changes, do we want to make or not make for this thing, and go together and go back to a change control process, do that. Then at some point, like we did with the inventory, we would identify a subset of this information that would be available to the public, right? So that's kind of the plan. So I think this is really from a variety of perspectives, this is good stuff, right?
Oh my God.
So I think you go back a couple of years, Michelle, remember those GIS maps? This has evolved to this, right? So we have.
This
now a
is light
dynamic-
years ahead of what we used to have.
So this is good dynamic stuff. This is
Awesome.
Yeah,
It
this
is
is good
awesome.
stuff. So I will, so I've been thanking Noah on a regular basis. So I think after this meeting, I'll give him another thank you and ask when we can release to you guys the link. You notice where it says at the bottom, in process and actually under development. So like I said, he's changing it on the fly as we go through here. Some of the changes he's doing is trying to figure out how to take a sub parcel. So if you got the Kalansky parcel, which is the school plus the preserve aspect, when you go on a map today, GIS map is one big lump. So we got to,
Right.
How do you carve off that subset of that parcel and say, hey, that's protected open space. The rest is really a managed facility part. It's a different category. So those are the kind of thing. Oh yeah, sorry about that. Let me go back to home. All right. So that's what I hate. That's the part I hate. I should put a fix button. So there are a number of changes that are in the queue already. And what we want to do is let him get through that first set of requests from Tom and myself, then open it to you for your request so that we can kind of get the whole commission involved in this. So let me shut up for a second and, comments from you guys.
Oh my God. This is phenomenal. I love that it's so integrated and it has all this data. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree.
Tom?
And just from a configuration control perspective, a lot of the stuff that Noah started this is from the April version when he first came on board. And so he kind of locked in on that version. And so I've been working with him the last last 2 weeks here, adding and correct all the corrections that we have found and things that have changed. And so there's still a number of parcels. So that's why we're kind of delaying a little bit here. So make sure that we get this as close to real time and for that, like the list of the 55, if you went and you saw where he was saying that proposed stuff isn't in that list. So that's what I'm trying to get him to get that kind of stuff updated. And I've been working with him and providing him the information, but it just takes time for him from a configuration and control to go from April up to 6 months worth of more changes here. So just so you let you know what's going on here.
Yeah, so I will ask him if it's possible if he gets through that stuff so that for our November meeting, you would have access to that link. So that says in the next 3 weeks or so. All right. So I'll ask him nicely to see if that timing is okay. So this is good stuff. All right. Are there any other comments or input?
That's great. Love it.
Okay. All right, so that was that. That was the you waited to the end so you get the good stuff. That's what that's what this was about. Let me close that here so I can see what's next. After that, I have, all right, I mentioned earlier, we published 3 letters to BACWAC. I'm now under the report of chair. The BACWAC memo was published. We talked about that. The neighborhood parks memo was published. I have heard nothing back. And we published the Sassacus naming memo, and that was published. The other thing that happened is that I was I guess a contributor to the No Ink Park Legacy Tree Project. And as a result of that, I just got the feedback that the community raised $5,205, plus the state matched about $2,250, which is almost $7,500 to plant trees in that No Ink area. Remember that area that a while ago we were a supporter to maintain as open space. So that says there's a plan for that. One of the things that also occurred is that I've attended the what's called the Right Tree. Where is that? The Right Tree program. Ah, I lost it now. Bear with me a second. Finding the right trees for the right place. Climate adaptation short course. So on that one, let me just open that up and share with you that. All right, so I guess I volunteered myself to participate in their workshop. We held one session last week. There's another one, and what it is trying to take their information, and let me see if I can find climate change. And I was trying to get the action list on what to do about working the habitats, and they do have a lot of recommendations to go. Oh, hi Sam. To figure out what types of trees are there, and one of the thoughts I had is maybe use this No Ink one and kind of tie it together to get some help from the state to recommend the right things to buy for that property as a small little project. I think that, Bruce, did I send out the link in the agenda to this?
You did, yeah. Oh, not in the
Okay.
agenda. I think I forwarded it out earlier today.
Okay.
It was a separate
you guys-
email.
Yeah, okay, you guys can look at that and kind of see what's in there. It's not as robust as I thought it was gonna be. I think it has some value, so I was gonna it's a 3-week, 4-week, I think once a week for 4 weeks to go through their process. Let me do, let's see, this is trees. So I'll kind of give you an update on that. I guess I'm not going to the values high enough for me to kind of, strong arm any of you guys to participate. So I'll just kind of go through it. If it was a more powerful input, I'd kind of do that. I think it has value, so you can kind of go through that on your own and see what's in there. So that was part of what I would call the chairman's report here. Let's see, what else? What did I forget? So the Marsh zone thing. All right, so I think I've gone through all of the report of chair. All right, so next on the agenda was Bruce. For report of staff. Oh, I'm sorry, we have an interrupt. Tom?
I'm looking at the agenda here. We have the open space plan and the app. Then we kind of skipped 300 Briar Hill, the city town merger. We talked about the NER and then the 22 meeting schedule. Just before you start getting too far down the pike here.
Okay, good point. Yeah, we did one of them. The 300 Briar one is did we share the map on that, Bruce? I'm
No.
trying to remember. All right, let me share that.
We just listened to the owner talk during the public discussion.
All right, thank you for keeping me honest, Tom. All right, so this is the, and I was authorized to share, to be able to reveal this to you guys. So this was shared from her, and there's 18 homes here, and this is the open space area here. Remember she said those 2 acres, which is this side over here, which is next to the town-owned property. I did run it through the model, I think, as I said, and it came out to be in the bottom quartile, the bottom third. So it's, you know, it's not what I would call environmentally high value, putting trees aside, right? It, you know, it doesn't have the wetlands, it doesn't have the riparian areas, et cetera. It does have trees, so that's there. And I think the question on the table was, you know, to think about what, you know, what recommendations, if any, we should do about this. My suggestion is to walk the property on the 26th and get a better opinion of what it is. Because it's kind of hard to do from aerial ones, and it is private property. So we just can't wander in there without permission. So that is my suggestion on this one. It's open to the entire commission, 8:30 on the 26th. And
The same day as the Waterfield trip?
I believe you did mention it was a week of the 26th. So that was Ann on that.
What was that?
No, I'm just, that's the only other thing I remember might be a conflict, is that week was going to be the other event that you were going to cover.
Yeah, the field trip. I looked it up. It's actually, I saw it on the 27th, Kristen.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, regardless, I think there'd be enough of us to be able to cover that anyway. So that's why I wasn't too worried. So that was the discussion on that. Any comments or discussions? I thought we would tee this up for a discussion at our next meeting. Okay.
I appreciate, this is Tom Olson. I appreciate, I had not seen this conceptual drawing before. It gives me better appreciation that there's been some interest in putting homes in there. I have had this, just for full disclosure, I have had discussions with Joe Smith today in regard from Groton Open Space, and they are going to go and take a look at it. It's not, again, high on their list of what places they've been looking at from their acquisition perspectives. So this is kind of out of a curveball that we had not anticipated. So this is, but I tend to be there on the 26th. Thank you.
I think we could look at it. You're right. It didn't pop up on our inventory that we identified properties, but things are opportunistic. So, you know, like I said, there's no harm in taking a look at it. Let me stop the share there. The other activity is the city versus I shouldn't say versus, is the looking at the conservation commissions between the two areas. I did go back and look at the city minutes of meetings from the wetlands and conservation commission meetings. I did not find any mention on anything dealing with conservation. It was all about permits and other things. So, I mean, that's just my own feedback from the work I did. Tom, I think you and Bray were working.
I have attended 2 of their meetings through the process of the open space conservation plan and working with them on it. they freely admitted to me that they spend 99% of their time on inland wetlands issues. And then in research with Bray, I did look into it and I found that they actually have an authorizing ordinance for the city that established the Conservation Commission, but it did not establish them under the statute for the inland wetlands. So I'm kind of scratching my head. They may actually have an issue where they have a Conservation Commission. In the general big picture, the state statute allows the Conservation Commission to act for it, but but if you've got that specifically doesn't say that they could do it, I'm kind of questioning what, they may have an administrative issue here that we could bring forth to them if they're interested in abdicating their Conservation Commission role and just becoming an Inland Wetlands Commission. It might be easier for them, but if they have to go through anything at any time. So that's the research that I did pointed that out. And so.
All right, that's good. That's good input. Michelle?
All right, thanks Tom and Bray for looking into that. So having read all the stuff that they came up with, my thought is to put together kind of a letter or document saying, here's our understanding of where everything stands with their commission, and here's what we would offer if we wanted to either take over or work with them, or like basically instead of trying to just get somebody just talk to them, actually spell it out in a letter. And then once we all agree that, yeah, this is what we think is the status, what we think we want to offer, then find the person to talk to give that letter and start a discussion. So I think we need to spell out so we are clear and it's clear to whoever we talk to, here's what we understand the status and here's what we think, here's our recommendation or here's an idea going forward, how we could help you by working, by taking over, basically by supporting the conservation aspect of their commission. That's my idea.
Justin?
I have a question. Are they looking to merge us into one body? I wasn't here last week, so I don't fully get like that we would be one commission with like 12 members, or what are we talking about?
No, they don't. No, Bray indicated that there was very little activity there, and that why wouldn't we just cover it? Now, when you look at the work we did, we covered the city anyway. The inventory list has the city in there, so that's certainly one of the items on this list that Michelle just mentioned. So I think that I would say, let me parse a little bit what Michelle say. I would say I would want to avoid a formal letter that looks maybe too intimidating, but I think kind of a outline of what it might be with what you said, that then would say, hey John, could you speak to him and just have a little offline conversation just to test the water, if you will, to see what the thought may be. Tom's point about the fact that they might actually not be authorized to actually have a conservation commission, is an interesting point.
No, they actually have an ordinance that says that they have a conservation commission. What my problem is that the actions that they're taking as an inland wetlands commission is not properly documented that way. So they're really working outside the scope of what their town, the city ordinance states. But I think that would be appropriate to put into a white paper that we could read.
That's what, yes.
Then give that to the town manager, and then he could have an independent one-on-one off the record discussions with the city mayor.
Yeah, no, that's I think the way to go is to make this low key and just see, maybe I don't care, or maybe no way, and that would then determine what we may or may not want to do next. Well, Bray, you started this whole thing. Oh, you're on mute, Bray. Bray, you're on mute. Bray.
All right. There was a glitch that went through on my computer and apparently it dropped me back in on mute. I I want to thank Tom for digging out those two ordinances or whatever that about the history of the Conservation Commission and then the inland wetlands within the city of Groton. And that is the history of Conservation Commission. Our Conservation Commission was in 1969, and that's when right around the time that the state of Connecticut was first formalizing towns to have conservation commissions. And then the interest of working on inland wetlands and regulations regarding that and so forth, as the state was developing that, it looked like they're looking for a commission within a town to dump it into, to make it as a working body. And the Conservation Commission appeared over planning and development and zoning to be a better place to land it. And I think that's as far as the definition within the city of Groton's ordinances has gone. It was interesting to see what it looks like, and I just read it very recently in the packet. So I haven't had much chance to think further on it, but I think everybody here has been coming up with some good ideas about actually moving this thing further. You know, setting up a white paper, presenting it to the town manager on our end, and then moving it forward that way and see where it goes. So I still think it's a great idea.
All right. Well, I do need someone to take the lead on the creation of that white paper. I don't have any problems, you know, brokering through John Burt and doing the right introduction to go forward with that. So let me throw it out there in terms of the next step of, now that some investigation has been done, is to craft a white paper. Maybe some city people. Hi, Tom. Oh, Michelle's shaking her head. Gray, do you actually live in the city? I'm trying to remember now.
Do I?
Yeah.
No.
No, I think I'm the only one that does.
Are you the only one? Okay. All right. I'm sorry, Tom.
No, I gladly put the initial draft down. You just tell me what you want to review it before it goes to you.
Well, I think, I mean, we got to keep it to the less than 3. So I would say Bray, as the instigator, and Michelle, since she's a city person.
Thank you for joining, Michelle.
Thanks for volunteering me, Larry.
No problem.
I'm grading student stuff, so that's why I'm not volunteering to take the lead. But I'll certainly look at it.
It's just a review.
Yep,
that's
I'm very happy to review it.
Okay. All right. Okay, Tom, keep me honest. Did I cover everything on the agenda?
Yes, you have. No, the 2022 meeting.
Calendar.
That's
the
Bruce's
schedule.
item.
I thought that would be Bruce's item.
Yep.
Okay.
We left you something, Bruce.
Bruce, over to you.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Yeah, I was gonna mention that under reporter staff. Yeah, meeting schedule 2022. Yeah, same time. Is proposed 5 p.m. first Monday of every month. There are a few holidays like we always have. I think there's one change in January because of the way New Year's Day falls this year, and also Labor Day as every year. So we'll do the second Monday in September. So if that is okay with everyone, motion to accept.
One question before we do this is that you actually have 3 holidays, and so you have asterisks there. You have a first asterisk that really, I think, talks about the COVID stuff, and then you have the 3 asterisks for the 3 holiday asterisks. So what I recommend doing is in the draft here is that you change the asterisk for the meeting, except as noted, to change that from an asterisk, either put 4 asterisks there or use a pound sign or something like that for the COVID recommendation in your draft. But I move that we accept these dates as proposed.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, show of hands to accept the schedule. All right. So passed unanimously, Bruce. Anything else?
That's all I have.
All right. So anyone else has a topic they want to raise? Ray, you can't raise another one. So, all right, I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Michelle, seconded.
Second.
Kristen? All right,
You
all in
you guys just
favor?
weren't fast enough.
All in favor, 1, 2, 3. All right, we have, oh, then Tom, all right, so that's unanimous, approved. Thank you all. You can stop the recording and we'll
Wait,
see you.
before you do that,
Yep.
we need Tom's approval for the minutes because we didn't get his approval when they first came through.
Oh, correct. We had you as non-participating, Tom.
Yeah,
Yes,
anytime it's
so my
abstained.
computer, it died. It hung up. I had to reboot, and that's how come I was not available. But I do approve him as I made the motion.
Okay, you can change his to an approved, Bruce.
Got it.
Okay, good job. I'll see some of you on the 26th and we'll see you in oh my God, November.
When are we gonna meet in person again?
Good,
Good
Bruce.
question. Yeah. I don't have any updates or I would mention it. So I do not know.
Okay.
All right, I'm up to getting my booster shot this week, for God's sakes. I mean, you know. Oh, all right. All right, folks. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Good meeting.
Bye.
Hi, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.